Hello to Gunnar Weiskamp's Web Development. Today, Lesson 12, MVC and Model Binding. Today's lesson looks at what model binding is and the number of ways it can be done. So if you want to create today's app, I'm using 2013 Visual Studio. Just go to File, New Project, and make sure your project's set to ASP.NET Web Application in the web here, as shown in B, and then we want to create an empty MVC app. Okay, so let's go into Visual Studio. First, we're going to add a controller. So you can see here on our right that we've just got an empty MVC app. So adding a controller here. Call it home. And then we're going to paste some code in it. Okay, yeah, so we've got some code in here which I'll explain soon. So that's going to be our controller code here. Right now we're going to add a new model file. I'm going to name it, students. Let's grab our model code. Here we go. Put it in here. So this is all our model code. As you can see, just two basic properties there, student name and student age. Let's bring our model namespace into our controller, because we're going to use the students object here, as you can see. There we go, so all the students, the student object has now been brought into scope for this controller here. Now, let's build the application so we have our model come into focus, because we're going to add some views here to certain aspects of this code, and we want to have that model present when we add the views. So while that's doing that, let us grab already some code ready for the next step. We're going to add here first our index view in 2 seconds. Now in our index view, we can see that all we're doing is creating here a student object from the class here, setting its properties to a name and an age, and then we're returning this person. So we're returning one person. That's an important piece to remember, one person. So the way this will bind compared to when you add lots of people or a number of classes is different than binding on one person. So let's add a view for the index here. Now we're going to create details. We're not posting back on this one. I've just got to think myself a little bit. We're not posting back. There's no post back action, so we're just going to see its information there. So we've got the index for the details page. We're not going to reference any layouts here. So we've got our models come into play here. We've got its details. Just have to make sure everything's set to that, because all we're going to display is the details of this user to the screen. Here we go. So we've grabbed that code before, and we want to use the existing code that we've already created. We've got a typo, probably typo error. Yeah, looks like it. Hopefully that's correct. So this is a important part of model binding, but I want to cover all these aspects in one. So let's keep on creating our views. We need one for the edit here as well, add view. In this one we do have a post back action here, as we can see here. I really should put the post action on that, and I will in 2 seconds. So in this case, in this action here, we're also just putting one user back to the screen, just like here, but we've got an edit action because we've got this down here. So we will be returning this information back to our program here. So this will be a create, or it could be an edit. It'll be, let's make this an edit because it allows us to edit the person. And that's that for that one. While that's doing that, let's grab the code. Edit, here we go. Yeah, so this is the get action for this view that we're going to create, and this is the post action for the view there. Let's put the code in. Right, so this is going to be our edit action here. So we've got a couple more views to add. We've got one here for this guy, show all students. We're going to add a view for this one. So as you can see here, we're showcasing a collection of users in this list object here and returning that into the view. So this will be what is known as a list option, because we're showing multiple users back. What happens sometimes here when you do this sort of action, it's a little bit hard to explain, but you could say details for this, and you'd think you'd get all the details for the people here, but the actual model bind that's created is incorrect. I'll try to explain it with a demo. For now, just make sure it sets a list. Make sure you've got your models folder coming in there, nothing referenced here, and click add. Let's grab the code for the show all students. Here we go, show all students. Let's put our already created code in. Right. Right now we've got 2 more views to add. This is called no model, so we're actually doing here a view with no model. I thought I'd give the name of the view what it's meant to show. So obviously this will just be empty with no model in it. So we will effectively be creating the Razor code from scratch. What I want to showcase with the no model is that you don't need a model to manipulate information. So let's just add that. While that's building, let's grab the code for it. There he is. And bring him into line. Our namespace there. There he is. Okay. So this, I'm going to explain the code all in one hit. I think that's going to be a little bit easier. Now we've got one more view to add, which is the bind only certain items view. So this is another different way of binding. In this case, we are passing back the model object here, the student, so we've got to add a model in. And this will be an edit as well, because we're posting back here. So this is its post action here. So bring the model into scope and click add. So while that's doing that, let's grab the code. And let's put in, right, let's bring our there it is. Okay, right, so let's try to have a think about this code. And we'll start with the control first. We've got all our dependencies now, it should all be good. Let's start here with this one first. So here we are binding, as mentioned, one item student's object to a view here. This is its post action here, so let's put we should technically put the post attribute down. So let's put that in there. This is this guy's post action here. And all we're doing here, oh god, I'm silly. Sorry. So this guy is just going to show information. That's it. It's not going to post back at all. Done. And it's binding one object to its view here. This here is an edit option. It's also showing one object here, just like this code here, but this guy's got a post back action. So let's put, oops, daisy. Let's put the HTTP post attribute there to make it more evident. So here we've got the post action for this action here. So when you click on this views submit, this will be called, and we can see here we're binding on a student object. So this will have all the information that's coming back here. And all the parameters here are being passed back. So std data age equals std student. So all the parameters are being passed back there. So let's just make that clear. And obviously, after you then submit this to a database or do whatever action you would do after that. Now we've got this show all students. It does not have a post action. This is a get action, but it is bringing back a number of students, a collection of students. So it binds here a collection of students to this view, which is different than this guy here. So that's its action. We will talk about the views in 2 seconds. This guy here, no model. So it's just going to return a view which the Razor code we've had to make ourselves because we haven't had it self-generated. And we'll have a look at its code in a second. This here, post action, belongs to this guy here. So this is the no model post action here. And here you can see we're binding, but we're using this form collection to bind information So here, so this form collection allows us to put information, get the information here within our post action. The form collection is quite simple. You've just got to have a variable there, reference the actual field names, which are on the Razor file and in the view. And they're going to be obviously student name and student age. So you just reference them in this manner, put them in a variable, then save them to the database, manipulate them however you see them, however it needs to be. So this is the form collection process of binding. So here in this one we are binding a class, so students class, and this is binding information which is not, this is how we can bind and get information which is not created from a class, put it that way. Now we've got bind only certain items. So here in the get action, he's just returning one object back to the view, just like previous ones. This is the post action of this guy, and we're showing here we've got this bind attribute which allows us, by using this include parameter, to only bind and bring back certain fields within this student's object. So in this case we're only bringing back the student name. We can't use the student age, so we can't do s.student age. That would, there'd be some sort of default value, but it'd be an incorrect value. So what we're showcasing here with the bind attribute is that you can bind and use only certain fields within your class if need be. So that's the differences between there. So let's have a quick look at the actual Razor files. The first one, or the views, first view is, we'll look at this index, remembering that it's only using one class, one member. And the key point of this is, is this little bit of code here. It's saying, because we've only got this web application, one student object, you just use this sort of syntax. You're just using one student, so you're just introducing one student class. And you'll see the difference in a second when you're using a collection of students. So that's the important item there. And then obviously, because it's only one student, we're not using any loops, because we're just putting one student here in the text boxes. Now if we go back to, let's save everything. Now if we look at the next guy, sorry, that was for the index only. Now if we look at this edit action, it is also just passing one guy back. So its view should be the same. You see this syntax here? It's the same as the last index one. So because we're only using one student, we've obviously got all this other code in here. Begin form is important because we're doing a post action back. So some of this code is different because we're posting back information. We're posting back information here into this action result. Now show all students does not have a post back action, but it returns a collection. So if we look at this show all students, you'll notice this here syntax is different. Let's just leave that there. You'll see this syntax here is different than this syntax here. We've got this I enumerable for a collection. And that's extremely important because we're passing a collection of students, an array of students, multiple students. And as you can see here, we're looping through these students and showing all the students on the page. So that's the difference between passing a collection or a number of objects compared to just one object here. So I wanted to really highlight the differences between that. So let's put him back in. So that was our show all students. He's not passing any information back. The no model is posting information back, and it's a form collection. So we've had to generate our own Razor code in here, which is not too difficult. And no model means we're just passing that guy back as a sort of default. Let's just clean this code up a little bit. And the difference between these two guys and sorry, let's go to this guy here, or is it this guy here? Bind a certain editor. Let's have a look here. This should give us some sort of difference. So because we're not using a model here in the no model view, you'll notice we've got text box 4. And here in the these are the display sorry, we've got the text box element here. Here when we're binding on a model, you'll see these lambda expressions. And that means this model has got this information. Here that's not present. We're just using text box and not text box 4. There's to sort of explain, if we were binding on a model, you would use the text box 4 syntax. And if we bring that into scope, you can see the system link expression. That's one of these lambda expressions. But again, because we haven't got a model to bind for, we have to use the text box 4, give the text box 4 an ID, a default value. We're not going to have a default value, and any HTML attributes it might use. And we've here created an ID for it and the student name. And that's the same with the age process down here. So let's just tidy that up. So if the no model, we've had to use the text box, not the text box 4. That's a distinct difference. So let's put him back into play. So now that was the no model, and bind only certain items. So we are using a model here. So he technically, you can see here, we've got this model binding here. We're only doing on one student, so we've only got this one student here, not the IEnumerable as shown before. And we've got all this. We have to use a HTML begin form because we're posting back. And as mentioned, we've got the age in here as well, and the student name. But because we're using this attribute here, the bind, and include student name, only the student name, if we change it, will be, its values will be brought back in here. So let's put a breakpoint in that one. Let's put a breakpoint in this one. And give this a demo. So we're building now. This may take some time. I've noticed my machine does take a long time to actually build the application. Let's ask. Right, it's building there, as we can see. And we will first demonstrate this index action here. So to see one object come back, so the index method, that should be called by the default. And so we'll see the student name here with Fred, his name will come up, and the student age will be 12. Yeah, as it does take a while to build, which is unfortunate. Feel free to fast forward this part. But yeah, any moment now. Here we go. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's just, whoops, daisy. Let's bring the whole namespace in. So there's our home index process here, as we can see. Student's name's Fred, student's age 12. We won't worry about these links here. It's just demonstrating to you that this binding process here of the models process there. So that's our first way of binding information to a view. Now if we go and do this edit action and go through the whole post, debug, actually, let's put a breakpoint there. Yeah, okay, so let's do the edit action. So there's our edit action here. Again, only one object brought back. And now when we click edit, so we're going to put an extra D in here, something simple. I'm going to raise the age to 13. And so here in our variables, we should see that information brought back there. So let's have a look. So we can see that information. Fred DD is there, so it's posted back all that and binded back all that in that one class. And the age is also correct. So this is binded correctly on that object. So that's sort of model binding on a class, if that makes any sense. So now so this is going to be show all students. Let's just bring that up. So we'll get a number of students back here. Fred, Lisa, Tom, 22, 44, 31, and all their ages. So here we're binding in this, using the collection class, the enumerable class. What happens a lot, sometimes you've built the wrong one, and you're just bringing back, excuse me, just bringing back the normal model there. And what happens here, if you ever see this error, this is quite common sometimes because you've just clicked on, when you created that view, you just clicked on the wrong binding agent. Because this will fail now, because what this says over here on our left here is you're binding on one student, one item, one object, while we're actually binding on 3 students, 3 objects here. Come on. There we go, we've got an error. And all that's saying is the getter numerator. And obviously it's trying to bind here it's looking here for a number of items, but you're only sending back one item back here. So this line of code cannot handle this process because we're not passing back a collection anymore. So we have to have this IEnumerable process in there because we are passing back a collection. Oops. So we'll rectify that. So that's our show all students. Now we go to our no model. So remember, on this one we're not using a model at all. We're just doing this process here. Debug. So there we go, no model. And because there's no model, there's no information being shown. If we now, and we're going to use this form collection to bind the information for our post back action here. So if we put in here Tom, and his age is 3, let's just click on that, see what happens. Let's have a look here in our variable. There you go, we've got Tom and his age is 3. So this is showing how we can use the form collection, if we haven't got a model, to get information back into our post action. So just another different way of consuming and using information. You do not need to use a model if you don't want to. Now the last one is our bind only certain items, which is this guy here. Now if we take a breakpoint, go to him, so let's change him again just to that D value. Let's change this to 13. Let's click on save and see what happens here. So this S is our overall object. It's got all the student information. And as we can see, the student age is not filled in. You can see that's 0. So if we pin this, and if we pin this, and now if we go over here, we've got 13, but no 13 here. We got Fred DD, and that's correct back. But again, no, the age was not brought back. And that's because we're only binding for the student name. And that's what this bind attribute allows us to do. So another different way of binding back in a post action performed here. So that's the bind attribute explained. So this was mostly talking about model binding, the different aspects of it, different ways of processing information in MVC. I hope you guys got something out of it. Please subscribe to my channel, and feel free to visit my website there at gunnerweiskamp.com. Thank you.